Making myself a coffee because I've got a road trip today. Ever since I made the video about taking the Tesla to France on that 900-mile road trip, there's been lots more things crop up that I want to say about the car, and today I've got to take the car to the Tesla service centre because the charging cable has stopped working. So I'm going to use today to catch up on, after 30,000 miles of owning a Tesla Model 3, I'm going to give you all the reasons why you shouldn't buy one. Ooh, good timing. Look at that. It's always fascinating how these work. I should probably start out by pointing out the fact that in the 18 months I've owned this car, in the 30,000 miles that I've done, apart from having to reset the software like twice in 18 months, I haven't had any faults at all with the car. We're now considering, Annemarie and I are considering our next change of car, because Annemarie's car is 12 years old. It's a Volkswagen Touareg, nothing wrong with it. It's a great car. But it's diesel, it's dirty. I think Touaregs are fantastic cars. We've had 3 of them now. They are amazing cars. So, and we're open to all options. Annemarie wants a pickup truck of some kind. There are no electric pickup trucks available in the UK yet. I'm not sure that's what we need right now. Having owned this Tesla for 18 months, having done 30-something thousand miles in it, it puts me in a really qualified position to decide on whether or not to buy electric for our next car, and if so, what electric car to buy. So it's worth mentioning now that I am a dyed-in-the-wool, petrol in my veins, petrol head, and have been since I could walk. I actually learnt to drive a manual or stick shift car on a farm when I was 8 years old. It was a Mark I Ford Escort, an H-Reg. I think that's the early 70s H-Reg. It was a battered old car, and I could drive that car aged 8. I had to sit up on cushions on the seat to see over the steering wheel, but I could reach the clutch and I could drive around a field in that car on my own, aged 8. And I was hooked from then, and from that point I didn't stop dreaming about all of the places in the world that I would drive to once I was old enough to get a driving license and have a car and be able to go. What I can tell you, first and foremost, after 18 months of owning this car, is that I don't love it. My other car is a 1989 Mercedes 560 SEL. In my opinion, and I'm working on a video on this, the best car ever made. If you look at the entire life arc of the internal combustion engine car, which we now know is coming to an end because there are now governments legislating to ban the sale of fuel-powered cars from 2030, I think it is. It's only 9 years away in the UK. You will not be able to buy a petrol or diesel car. So the end is in sight. The writing is on the wall for petrol cars, right? I love that car. I love it deeply. I only paid £2,300 for it, and it was sitting in the back of a hangar and hadn't been on the road for 2 years, but I had a gut feel about it. And if you said to me, which car would I rather spend 2 hours in driving, it would be the Mercedes every single time. I would drive the Mercedes over this Tesla every single time. Recently, I had a situation where, unexpectedly, on a Sunday, I had to drive all the way from Devon up to Oxford. Typical. I'd plugged the Tesla in to charge the night before, and for the first time ever, I hadn't plugged it in properly into the wall, and it didn't charge. So I came out, and I had 60 miles of charge or something on it, which meant I had and I was against the clock. I had no choice but to take a route that went via a Tesla supercharger, which was on the M5. Now, it was a Sunday afternoon on the M5, and the world and their families were leaving the West Country and driving back to wherever they live after the holidays, so the M5 was stationary. But in order to supercharge, I had no choice but to voluntarily take myself into that traffic jam and sit there for 2 hours to get to my supercharger. That was a day when I wish I could have dropped in at my local petrol station, filled up, splash and dash and go. When you're doing journeys that are unfamiliar routes and you don't know where the chargers are, it often requires much more advanced planning than if you just go in a petrol or diesel car. Other things I don't like about this car that would make me prefer to buy a different brand of electric car, so a Volkswagen electric car, or an Audi, or a Hyundai, or a Nissan, or any other electric car other than a Tesla, the build quality on these Teslas is perfectly good, but it's not as good as the German cars, right? And I've always owned Volkswagens predominantly, and Audis, and my old Mercedes, and you cannot top German car build quality, in my opinion. You just can't beat it. You know, it's all very lightweight, and you know, I've knocked this out of its clippings just getting it out of the car. There's a few little small things, and the rear door on the passenger side, when it closes, the panel fit isn't quite perfect and flush. These are irritations, but they're frankly inconsequential ones. But nevertheless, joy of ownership, I would like to buy a German car. Two things that do not work well on this car: the automatic wipers. I don't know why Annemarie's 12-year-old Touareg's automatic wipers do a better job of sensing when they should be on and when they should not be on than they do in this Tesla Model 3. It clearly isn't a priority of them. So it's fine, you can live with it, it's annoying, but Jesus, Tesla, sort out the automatic wipers. It's not a very endearing feature when you've got a dry screen and they're going full speed. And the other thing, there's another automatic thing that my 2008 Audi A6 did better than this, is automatic headlight dipping. I've just switched it off. I just do my headlight full beam and dipped just manually the old-fashioned way, because it just doesn't work well enough, Tesla. Something else I haven't mentioned is the autopilot. I haven't got full self-driving on this. I've just got an autopilot, and that's extraordinary technology. It really is, and I use it when I'm on long journeys. So one more thing for the real petrol heads out there, on the performance side, I have to say this car did blow me away. Again, it's not the performance Model 3, it's the long range Model 3. In the summer of 2020, I took this car all the way to Italy, to Lake Como, and I chose the scenic route, and I went up and over the Swiss Alps from Switzerland into Italy, and I got into what I will call an extremely sporting tangle with not one but two RS4s, Audi RS4s, cars that I love, right? One of them was going up the mountain, and I was really enjoying myself, and I wanted to put this car through its paces. I wanted to see how badly the battery performed if I drove it really using up as much acceleration as power as possible. I wanted to see worst case scenario in terms of range. And I wanted to see how it performed, and Alpine switchback roads are fantastic for that. I managed to overtake this RS4 that was not making it easy for me, and that was basically down to that instant torque you get with an electric car. It was on the inside of a bend, and I could see clearly ahead, but it was a slowish bend, and I just punched it, and that instant 100% torque, I just caught him by surprise, and I got in front of him, and then I managed to pull away, and he didn't keep up. I was convinced I was going to overheat the brakes and get brake fade, because I encountered another RS4. Same thing happened. Ended up coming up behind him, ended up getting past him, and then ended up going really horribly much too fast, trying to get away from him. You know, we do these things sometimes. We shouldn't, but we do them. I can remember coming down a long, very straight, very fast downhill stretch, and suddenly there was a roundabout. If I'd been going at normal speed, it wouldn't have been a problem, but that roundabout caught me by surprise, probably because I was watching my mirror too much with the guy trying to keep up. And I thought, ooh, I'm not sure the brakes are going to handle this. And I threw out anchors, deployed the parachute, stamped on the brake, both feet, all of my weight. And to give you an idea, I mean, it fully deployed the ABS on dry tarmac. No problem. And that was at the end of a long downhill with lots and lots of heavy braking coming down the hill. So the brakes were already hot. I really pushed it to its limits, and there was zero brake fade. I had all the grip, and even though this is a heavy car with its batteries, the brakes scrubbed off all of my speed, and I went into that roundabout at a totally controllable speed. it is worth, I mean, for most people, that isn't a consideration. But if you are someone considering a Tesla versus a performance car like an Audi RS4 or a BMW M3 or that kind of thing, well, this isn't even the performance model, and I can promise you it really, really held its own in that setting of being up against Audi RS4s on fast mountain roads. The answer is that if you remove emotion and you remove passion and you remove irrational preferences and you look at the decision purely objectively, even though Teslas are by far not the cheapest electric cars, I am sorry, but any way you cut it, if you're going to be doing longish road trips, oh, look at that lovely old XJS on that trailer. Oh, see, petrol head. It doesn't make any sense to buy anything other than a Tesla. Sorry, let me qualify that. If you're someone that does long journeys and high mileage, okay? I'm talking about people that need a car capable of doing long journeys. So Annemarie frequently has to go from Devon to Essex and back, which is the journey that the Touareg does very well, but it's expensive doing long journeys in cars that use fuel. It boils down to this, guys, and I've done my research. I don't expect you to trust my research. I recommend you do your own research. But my research shows me that for this money, what are the three things you want out of a car? In no particular order. Cost of ownership, right? Cost of ownership, which is cost of running, maintenance costs, fuel costs, and depreciation costs. Number two, speed, if you do long journeys and you like a powerful car like me. And number three, safety, probably in the other order actually. Safety, speed, economy. Nothing else that you can buy if you do long distances comes anywhere close, right? The Tesla is both officially and unofficially the safest car you can get. They score higher on safety tests than anything else in their class. And in fact, if you watch it, there's a Tesla recently released a video about the lengths. They don't accept world standards for safety as good enough. They've gone above and beyond that. The day I picked up this car, the safety features on this car prevented what would have been a high-speed collision on the M3. I was unfamiliar with the wing mirrors. One of my pet dislikes about this car, right, is that the wing mirrors, you don't have the width of vision that you do on VW and Audi cars. I'm just used to those cars where there's a curl around on the mirror and it covers your blind spot in the mirror. These mirrors have a blind spot. I was changing from lane 2 to lane 3 on the M3, and I looked in my mirror and I didn't see that there was a car in my blind spot, and the car wrenched the steering wheel out of my hands and steered me back into lane 2. Flashed up a red thing and said, I can't remember the wording, it says something like steering control taken over to prevent an accident, and it did. And as that happened, this car came whistling past me in lane 3 that I had not seen. The cost of running it compared to other electric cars is basically the same, but compared to any petrol or diesel car, the cost of running is two things, right? First of all, the fuel costs. It's roughly 90% less if you're charging at home, the cost per mile of running your car compared to diesel or petrol, right? It's such a big saving that the cost is basically negligible. You probably spend more money buying coffee on your journey than you do on the cost of fuel, right? And as far as maintenance goes, well, I'm happy to report 30,000 miles in and 18 months in, 0 servicing required, 0 faults on the car. This charging cable is the first fault I've had, and 0 money spent on maintenance. The only money I've had to spend is on changing tyres. My rear tyres lasted 20,000 miles. My front tyres lasted 28,000 miles, although to be fair, they were right down. They'd gone a bit beyond on the inner edges what I expected. So, I mean, that's the best performance I've ever had out of any tyres I've driven, especially out of a performance car. There's just no comparison. Tesla stole a march on all the other car companies, and it's their clincher. That motoring journalist Chris Harris from Top Gear, he's like, Tesla's the only one with a supercharger network. Therefore, if you do long journeys and road trips, Tesla's the only electric car you can buy. So, that wraps up this talk on why, if you're buying a new car, or if running your current car costs you in total maintenance and fuel costs 500 or 600 quid a month, if you're spending that much on running your car, and if you do quite high mileage, then you will be, you can afford to buy a new Tesla on finance. If you've got the deposit you need, you can afford to lease a new Tesla. So even if you are driving a clapped out old banger, but it's costing you 500 quid a month on maintenance, repairs and fuel, you will be better off buying a Tesla.